Hello, everyone, and welcome to iCritic Live. This is the podcast where we talk about life, pop culture, and life in between. I'm your host, Kevin T. Rodriguez, film critic of iCritic.net, and thank you so much for spending a few minutes of your time here with me today. And before we begin today's topic, want to make a couple of quick announcements. We've got some great stuff coming up for this podcast. Great stuff. We have a couple of guests that I won't say who they are right now, but they are good guests. I'm definitely looking forward to having them on the show. We have another podcast already recorded, scheduled for Monday. I just wanted to get this one up first because I think it is more timely at the moment, and the other one, I actually wanted to give it a few days because it's kind of concerning some YouTube drama, but not really. And I just wanted to wait until some of the noise had settled before sharing my two thoughts on this particular situation. But here's the big announcement. For those who watch and subscribe to the iCritic YouTube channel, not just the podcast, but the YouTube channel, I am going to be having a couple of new series launching next year. Now, what I am doing, because I kind of feel like this might be the best way to do it considering the time constraints that I have to produce full-length editorial videos, is I'm making this series far in advance so that starting in January, there will be major videos that can go up every Monday for the first several months. And that should give me plenty of time to stay on top of things and all that jazz. In the meantime, the podcast will, of course, still be produced. And with that out of the way, let's talk about today's topic. You saw the title. You might be wondering what the heck it is I'm talking about. Now, the title of the video, the podcast, I should say, is Should Cinema Lovers See Deadpool and Wolverine This Weekend? And this topic has actually been inspired by a YouTube video that I saw from a YouTuber that I enjoy watching. The channel is called Serial at Midnight, and the channel made a video where the host, he titled the video Announcement, I'm Changing How I Support Movies. And he basically had this statement, like he was going to change the way that he saw movies in the sense that he has decided that for the first week, now on X he said 2 weeks, but in the video he said 1 week, that for the first week or two, basically, he would not be seeing franchised movies. That meant no Marvel, that meant no sequel, that meant no prequel. Now he's not completely depriving himself of these movies if he wants to see them. After a week or two is gone, if he decides he wants to go to the theater to see it, then he will still do so. It's not like a complete cutting out of everything, and I think that's a much more realistic and honest approach to things rather than people saying, oh, I'm boycotting all Star Wars and Marvel and anything Bob Iger bought. I'm boycotting all of them, except for Pixar. Except for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, because I kind of like the first two Guardians. No, that's not what's happening. I mean, especially since some of these people don't like those movies anyway, so they're not really boycotting anything. That would be like me saying, I am boycotting the NBA Finals because of something the NBA is doing. I don't watch basketball. It is no skin off my back, and I'm not even contributing to their bottom line anyway. However, what Serial at Midnight is saying is, look, I think that this era of movies that it's mostly franchises, it's mostly repackaged stuff, we're rebooting everything, we're doing legacy sequels of everything, and though he didn't cite it, I will say Twisters was probably at the forefront of his mind when he made something like this, because Twisters, and for the record, I kind of enjoyed Twisters. It was way better than it should have been, but that being said, who asked for a sequel to Twisters? That is a sequel to a movie that's not very good, and I don't think anyone was asking for it, but guess what? It made about $80 million over the weekend. You know there's going to be a third Twisters. Twisters of Twisters, they can call it. Something to that effect. But all these movies that are overperforming, they're not the original movies. They're not the Everywhere Everything All at Onces. They're Longlegs overperformed, and good for Longlegs. I mean, I didn't like that movie very much. I'm going to be honest. The review will go up on my website at some point. I had some issues with it, but I'm glad that most people liked it, and it seems to be doing very well. But Horizon, a movie that I very much liked and am very much looking forward to Chapter 2, 3, and hopefully 4, well, that didn't do very well. Now, it's tearing up the premium on video charts. It's, tearing up the streaming. And Midnight, because I forgot the host's real name. I'm so sorry. He pointed out, look, that's an original movie. That's a movie that really needs our financial support if we want to see more movies like this made. But it's not doing well in theaters. You know what it's doing well on? It's doing well on streaming. And so people are sending a very clear message, and I agree with him, by the way, that we are telling studios that we will show up in droves for the sequel. No matter how old the last movie came out, because I think Twister came out in 96 or 97. It's been a while. And Inside Out 2, that's a sequel to a movie that came out in 2005, almost 10 years ago. And here we are rewarding it as the highest grossing animated film of all time. Boy, I miss when that title used to go to movies like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and The Lion King and Frozen. Miss those days, of course. But he made a very interesting point that, look, I'm not going to deprive myself from seeing, the Marvel movies or whatever if I want to see them. But I'm not going to go on the opening weekend. On the opening weekend, I am going to seek out a movie that needs my support more than these products do. And he went on to justify, a Deadpool and Wolverine, this isn't so much of a movie as it's like a product. It's a toy commercial for itself. Even before you see the movie, you're being asked to buy things like the Wolverine popcorn bucket and the special collector sippy cups. And they were even selling at the AMC that I went to see this movie, they were selling a baby Deadpool toy. What the heck is baby Deadpool? I don't know. I've seen the movie, now I know. But they were selling that before I even saw the movie, and yeah, so they're definitely... Marvel movies are there to sell products, and they're meant to be interconnected. And in fact, my written review of Deadpool and Wolverine, which I will include in the description wherever this podcast goes up, so you can read it at the iCritic website, is definitely a mixed review because, spoiler alert, this critic liked the movie, enjoyed laughing, it was a lot of fun, and yet I'm sitting there and the implications for what a successful movie like this means in terms of cinema. It's not cinema. It's not art. It's a product. It's almost like this movie is a drug, if you will. You shoot up on highs of laughter, but there's nothing really of substance happening. Now, unlike most movies where there's nothing of substance, at least it's funny. I would so much rather watch a comedy like this than I would The Waterboy, which I saw one time in theaters with my friends, and some of those people I'm no longer friends with because they all thought this was the most hilarious movie in the world, and I was thoroughly annoyed by the whole thing. And I think that's when I realized that me and my friends at the time were on very different levels from what we were expecting from our movies. And Serial at Midnight has challenged people, and me, I will admit that, you know what, we should really stop celebrating these movies that are meant to be self-fulfilled prophecies. There's how many Marvel movies before this movie came out, and they announced, it's connected to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And then, not to spoil too much, but they're throwing in a lot of cameos that's definitely referencing older films. And you kind of realize, this is basically Marvel jerking off to themselves and saying, we know you love this stuff. Heck, you might not even like this stuff, but we reference it, and you will go wild over it. This is not the kind of movie that cinema lovers should be supporting. If you love cinema, you should be paying to see movies in theaters that are of substance. Now, there is usually, you'll find it online. There will be these movie placards that show what movies we're showing, and they say usually like, what are you seeing? Like, I'm even gonna type that in, see if I can't get this to be as specific as possible. You know what? Let me go to X. Let's see, what are you seeing tonight? Let us see what those, because they usually, okay, here it is, a 1994 billboard. Like, so what are we seeing tonight? Are we seeing Forrest Gump? Or are we seeing Pulp Fiction? Or The Shawshank Redemption? Like, these are all movies that were out at the same time. It's really, really crazy. Or you're going to see The Bridges of Madison County. Like, you know, you really look at it, it's like, wow, it's like you had great choices to see movies back then. I just got a text message, and what do you know? They want to do a survey politically. No, we're not going to do that survey now. So there you have it. But let's continue with this podcast. So, yeah. I mean, you used to have choices, like there were real movies to see. And now you go to showtimes near me, like you have basically, like, I'm going to go to the Irvine Spectrum because I love the Irvine Spectrum. Here's the movies you have. Deadpool and Wolverine, franchise film. And by the way, it's on all the premiums. Like, it has 4DX 3D. IMAX 3D for some reason. RPX, ScreenX. There's a couple 3D screenings that are regular. You can also see A Quiet Place Day 1. That's a franchise film. Despicable Me 4. That's a franchise film. The Fabulous Four, have no idea what it is, so that's an original. We have Twisters, franchise film. We have Longlegs, original film. Inside Out 2, franchise. Bad Boys Ride or Die, franchise. I don't know what Man in Which the Dance of a Thousand Steps is, but hey, I guess that's a new one. Oh, and that's a Fathom event, so it probably doesn't count. Although I'm looking at this like, yeah, this looks interesting. What can I say? And then you have their summer movies. They have Kung Fu Panda 3, franchise film. Lyle Lyle Crocodile. Okay, that was a new one. And then we have movies that we can pre-order tickets for. Harold and the Purple Crayon. Now, that's kind of an original, but that's also based off a book. Now, Trap. That's an original by M. Night Shyamalan. I am really hoping it's good. But then I heard that they're not screening it for critics, so I'm very worried. It Ends with Us. Don't know what that is, so yay for that one. But look, Borderlands, based off of a video game. Dee Dee. I don't know what Dee Dee is. I really don't. Now, here's Lawrence of Arabia, but that's a reissue, so that doesn't really count. Alien, Romulus. How many more Alien movies are we going to get? We have Coraline, the 15th anniversary coming out, so that's a re-release. That doesn't count. And then we have Ryan's World, the movie, Titan Universe Adventure. Okay, that's based off a preschool show, and I'm not going to get too critical of it other than to say, why is it rated PG? Like, that's a Nick Jr. show. Nick Jr. We also have pre-ordered tickets for a movie called The Forge, which apparently is a Christian movie. And Reagan, which stars Dennis Quaid as Ronald Reagan. I guess there's going to be another God's Not Dead movie because that's a franchise. I thought it was going to end with a trilogy. I guess it's a quadrilogy now. But you can kind of see what he's getting at. Like, the options for original movies is so much less now. They're just feeding us franchise films. And he is correct when he's like, you vote with your wallet. The reason they're doing it is because this is what's going to make them money. Like, the reason that they will make a sequel to Twister, which is a movie no one was asking for, is because it overperforms with $80 million. And Twister wasn't that good. So his suggestion is, instead of seeing the big corporate movie in the first 2 weeks, see another movie that's not as corporate, something that is a little bit more personal, comes from an independent studio, maybe. Give the money to them. Because, this guy did say, and people ragged against him for this, but it was very true when he pointed out he was not going to see Barbie because it's like, look, if you see Barbie, you're going to be sending the wrong message to Hollywood. They're not going to take the lessons that, you liked the movie, that it had something to say, that it was made by a female director who had a vision for this thing, surprisingly. Like, they're not going to see that. They're just going to see that a movie about a toy made money, and they are going to capitalize on that. And sure enough, that's what happened. Look, Barbie may have been a Best Picture nominee. It might have gotten a bunch of award nominations. It might have been, by some people's estimates, one of the best films of the year. I did not think it was one of the best films of the year, although I did give it 3.5 stars, which is far better than I thought it was going to be. But here's the thing. Midnight was right. The lesson that Mattel took from that was that people wanted to see movies based on toys. So that's why they're making the Mattel Cinematic Universe. They're making the Polly Pocket movie. They are making the Hot Wheels movie. They're making the Uno movie. That's still a thing, folks. They're making the Uno movie. And maybe some of these will be good. I mean, you never know. But for every Lego movie that gets released, you get a Playmobil, the movie. Or you get a Ugly Dolls, the movie. Is that what it was? Like, Hollywood tends to take the wrong lessons. And if we want better movies, if we want original movies, you need to pay to see them. And yeah, maybe like delaying seeing the Pixar and the Marvel movies doesn't change anything in one day, but it maybe gets you to be a little bit more creative at the very least. It's like, okay, this movie is off limits for the first couple weeks. What else can I see? And you go to, and you discover something that you had not heard about before. And you see it, and maybe you even love it. Who knows? But the thing, like this Fabulous Four thing, I do not know what it is, but I see it has Susan Sarandon, it has Bette Midler, it has, who else does it have? The name? Sorry, the names are a little hard to see at the moment, because it has Jessica Milani. Like, hey, why not? This looks interesting. I mean, I've got the Regal Unlimited and the AMC stubs. Maybe I'll go see this. So, maybe you've never heard of this, but if you take a couple weeks off the big movies, maybe you'll check something like this out. This movie could really use your support. They'd be much more happy with your money than Marvel would be, believe it or not. They don't need money. And then you might discover something wonderful. And you can still see the big movie later on. Now, the one area where this maybe does not help very much is if you're like me and you love the IMAX and you love the 3D and you love all those special premium screens, then it might be more difficult to not support the big movie on the first weekend, because if you miss it the first weekend, it's probably going to be gone the next weekend. Like, I saw Twisters last week in 40X, and by the way, I think the 40X format helped me enjoy that movie a lot more because of the wind and the shaking and the lightning and the spraying. Like, it was just so much fun. And the thing is, it was almost sold out, and this was like the day before Deadpool and Wolverine opened. That thing probably would have done well in 40X for a few weeks. But, hey, that was last week's big movie. Deadpool and Wolverine, that's this week's big movie, so move it out. So if you like those experiences, that's going to be a bit of a tougher thing to pull off with this rule. But overall, I think it's not a terrible thing to think about. The reason I won't change my habits is because I am seeing these movies. Like, I did go to see Horizon. Heck, I took my dad to see Horizon, so I technically bought 2 tickets to that. I'm going to see the Fabulous Four. Even if it's not on the opening weekend, I will make time to see it. I see the anime movies when they come out. I didn't see Long Legs the first weekend, but the second weekend, I did see it. So I've been putting my money where my mouth is. But I think us as cinema lovers, maybe it's time to have this new evaluation. Like for the first couple weeks, maybe we see the smaller movies and we save the bigger movies for later on. And, that might even be like a double positive, because if the bigger movies stick around longer, then it kind of encourages the movie companies to not put the films on streaming as quickly. Although Universal is still an absolute pain in the butt about that. Apparently they're already going to be putting Despicable Me 4 on Peacock or something in the first week of August, when it's a brand new movie and it's still doing big box office. But hey, now that people know it's coming to Peacock, why go to the theaters to see it at that point? I mean, if that movie's just a babysitter at that point, then yeah, treat it like a babysitter. But anyway, that's what Midnight, or Serial is Midnight, I should say. That was his thoughts. Those are my thoughts on his thoughts. And now I'd like to know what your thoughts are. Do you think this is a good strategy? Do you think you might, reevaluate how you see movies? If you're listening to this podcast in a place where comments can be left, please encourage you to leave a comment and get the conversation going. And hey, if this is your first time listening to this podcast and you like what you hear, let's make it official. Subscribe. We are on all the major podcasting platforms: Spotify, Apple, YouTube, Deezer, whatever you want. And I will see all of you at the movies. Take care. Hey, you made it to the end. Thank you so much for making it to the end. Just a few more things. First of all, the names that you see on the screen, these are our Patreon and YouTube member supporters. And I thank each and every one of them. Their support helps me make exclusive videos for Patreon and YouTube members, as well as keep the channel running. And of course, is just of huge kindness to me. Also, don't forget to check out the iCritic Led podcast on Spotify, Apple, Google, Deezer, whatever podcasting service you listen to. It is there. We definitely want to see you there. And hey, there's also other videos that you can check out. So, check out these other channels, these other videos, especially that one. I think that's a really good one.